So Apple released the iPhone SE earlier this year, bringing back an old and familiar form factor. Some people were really excited about that, and a lot of people in the tech community actually applauded them because they brought power to an incredible budget price. And some people just absolutely slammed Apple for it. It's kind of interesting. People ask for something and they get it, and then they're upset by it. A less expensive phone is given to you, but you slam it because it looks old. Or a phone with every single cutting edge piece of hardware available, and then it's stupid expensive. And complain about that. There's no winning here. I personally have always been against high priced phones for no good apparent reason. Like always, just since the beginning. Not a fan of it. But this marks some interesting things, because here's the thing. I am going to keep this phone. I actually didn't have an intention of keeping this phone. I was going to give it away or sell it, but I do have one fairly compelling reason that I'm going to keep this. And unlike any other time when I have a really good compelling reason to keep a phone, I'm not going to suggest that you do it, or at least not for my reason. 100%, you should not keep the iPhone SE for the reason that I'm keeping it. And I'll tell you why. Right after this!
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below. But for now, let's just get into the video. Now, when the leaks of the iPhone SE came out a while back, and we found out that this phone was going to be under $500, it was kind of exciting. I think the thing that it caught the most grief for is the old form factor and, some of the old things that people had thought that Apple had left behind. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the year when this was, right before this was announced, that this is basically an iPhone 8 with some slightly upgraded internals. Well, in the case of the processor, wildly upgraded. That A13 processor is really right now the most recent and updated processor for mobile phones, especially for iPhones, and certainly incredibly powerful and goes neck to neck with the current Android king, the Snapdragon 865. And just like anything else, it runs amazing. Everything about this operating system on this phone works smoothly because, of course, it is an iPhone and it is running the best processor for iPhone. But the question was, why did they bring it out? And I think the answer was really simple. I recently made a video about the top selling phone for the first half here, the first quarter of 2020. I'm gonna leave a link in the description below for that. I can give you some hints. It's not this phone, but this one won't be far behind for sure. I'm sure in the next quarter we'll see this one come up. And the reality is, Apple found out very quickly when they released the iPhone XR that a lower priced phone with really good specs is going to sell well. So they came back out with the iPhone SE. And rightfully so. This is a phone for very specific people at $400, people on a budget who want an iPhone, some people who like this form factor. A lot of people really dig this form factor and don't really want an all-screen display. They want a button they can press. They don't like the swiping gestures. They like having a home button. They like Touch ID. And this phone is absolutely perfect for that, for them. And I get it. If you're watching videos on YouTube, likely this is not the phone for you. Of course, there's always people in my comment section from the Android side of the fence that just don't like this phone at all, or even any iPhones at all. And that's cool. That's fine. You don't have to like it. It's not here trying to convince you to buy this. But I think you should at least respect what Apple did here. They took a top-end processor and put it into a smaller form factor and made it at a completely budget price. The closest thing Samsung has done to that recently is the S10 Lite, which I really, really enjoyed. I did a video about that just a little while back. I guess I'll leave a link for that in the description below and maybe in an end card. So make sure you watch that because I think Samsung did a great thing. That phone's around $500 and is basically a bigger version of last year's S10 with the Snapdragon 855. So I think in general, putting a great processor and a great screen and a great size and all the things in a budget priced phone is exactly the way to go. And like I've been saying all this year, the budget priced phones are the battleground. I'm so glad to see Apple and Samsung throwing in. I wasn't sure that would really be the case this year. Now, Samsung has had the A series of phones, but they've never impressed me. But that S10 Lite does. And in this case, the iPhone SE does as well. But like I've said, for me personally, the screen is too small. And while I actually like the button, I like having Touch ID again, I'm just not a big fan of the size. Like, the screen itself being too small is one thing, but I like bigger phones. Listen, I've had screens that are over 6 inches for a long time. I mean, just look at this. Look at the size difference here. It's not a small difference. And I'm not trying to squint at my screen when I'm looking at it most of the day. My phone has to be a productivity machine. And while the processing power on this thing is fine, my eyes are not great. I'm just gonna be honest, my eyes ain't great, so I need a bigger screen. On an interesting side note, this was actually supposed to launch with a slightly bigger version. Now that's interesting because if the bigger version of the SE came out, we might be having a different discussion. Some of you may have watched my Amazon Renewed series where I buy renewed phones from Amazon and review them. And one of my favorite phones from that series was the iPhone 8 Plus, which is basically what this would be in a slightly larger form factor. And from what John Prosser says, we still might see that phone next year for maybe $100 more, because if you look at the prices on Apple's site, there's a price missing. This is $400, and $499 is a price point that's missing across all other phones. A bigger version of this would fit in nicely. And that phone, I might like to have that one. And I know a bunch of people in the comments are gonna say it's just a bigger version of this one that you don't want. Trust me, I get it, I understand, but there was something really intoxicating about that phone. There's been 2 phones this year that have caught my imagination and I have fallen in love with. That was the iPhone 8 Plus and the Samsung S10 Lite. Done videos on both of them, make sure you check them out. Also, the battery life on my current phone is just so much better than this that I can't trust this to be my main phone. As a matter of fact, there's really no reason for me to go to this phone, especially since everything about the iPhone 11 Pro Max or almost any Android phone that came out this year is kind of better all around. But again, this phone wasn't made for me and probably wasn't made for you. It was made for all those people who have had iPhone 6s, 7s, and 8s and just have never, ever upgraded. They wanted something that looks like their current phone, did not want to spend $1,000, but wanted a good value. And here it is. And I think what we're gonna find is Apple made the right choice. Last year, they sold a tremendous amount of XRs. This coming year, they've already sold a tremendous amount of iPhone 11s. And I can't wait to see how many they sell of these. So the strategy is absolutely solid. Why wouldn't someone want to buy this phone? Well, so many people just dog this about being an older design with newer internals and think that that's a lack of innovation. But here's the thing they did do, which is actually the reason why I am going to keep this. Now, let me be clear. This is not going to be my main phone at any point ever. And as a matter of fact, I probably will rarely use this. But it does have one thing that makes me think maybe I should keep it. And that simply is the camera, which is absolutely excellent on this thing. Now, of course, I already have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. The camera's excellent on that. And I already use that for my B-roll. However, having a secondary camera with very similar image quality, especially for video, is kind of clutch. Plus, this thing is smaller. If something happens and it falls and breaks, I'm not out my primary phone. So yeah, there's even some programs I can use that would be great for multi-angle. And if I want to have pretty good quality, I can have my phone on one and this on the other, match them up. And for a creator, that's awesome. And a DSLR at this price point may or may not be better video quality-wise, but let me tell you, so many other features about this, for me, just make it a no-brainer. But obviously, this is not a good reason for any other human being on the face of the earth to keep an iPhone SE. No one else on the face of the planet should keep an iPhone SE for this reason. I'm a creator on YouTube. I mean, this is my thing. This just makes sense for me. And after having this for a while, this is almost kind of like a couple of weeks later review. It's fine. Like, the battery life is okay and everything about this works, but it's just not for me. Except the camera's pretty awesome. So you might be wondering, like, who else is this phone for? I kind of mentioned this before in other videos, but definitely it's for people who are looking for an inexpensive phone that's on iOS, that wants good quality, great for pictures, great for social media, and don't really care about iOS versus Android. Like, if you like iOS, that's great. If you like Android, that's fine. There's plenty of people who don't even know the difference. This is a pretty good option. And the reality is, at least here in America, there's a tremendous amount of people on iPhones. And once you start messaging people and doing all the social media things, it's just easier. So for people in America, this is kind of a no-brainer for a large portion of people. But I get it. Even people on the Apple side of the equation do not like this phone. Some of them. I mean, some of them appreciate it, But a lot of them don't. They think it was a mistake. They think it was a kind of a short-changing of a new phone, like maybe they could have made a mini version of the XR or something like that. I don't think that's right. I think hitting the price that they needed to, they did a good job. Apple, listen, props to you. I don't really need this phone. I'm going to use it as a secondary camera on occasion. But listen, props to you. But maybe you know of a budget smartphone that people might actually get some enjoyment out of. So leave me a comment below. Let me know, what phone do you think should someone have? Maybe their backup phone if their other phone breaks, or maybe they're going on a trip. That's something else I would use it for. Like, I don't want to take my primary phone everywhere. Like if I go to the beach, I definitely don't want to take my primary phone. I would definitely take something like that. What about you? What other phone would be good for that? Would not cost a lot of money. But I will tell you this right now, this phone, I love this phone. You need to check it out. Peace and love, peace and love. I'll see you next time.